Good evening, YouTube. Welcome to another episode of the Killer Comic Show. We are on episode 19, so I thought giving back. It's the season of festive joy, so I thought why not give something back to you fantastic viewers out there. With me tonight is the one and only Livio Ramondeli. Now, fans of him, you might know him from the fantastic work he's done on Transformers, Firefly, Star Trek, the creator of the fantastic comic that is The Kill Lock. Livio, thank you for taking the time for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Mate, it's been great. I see you on Whack Comics, and I thought this is someone I want to delve into the mindset of how he became the artist, how he comes up with a concept, what he does on a daily basis. So I thought, what better way to get you on, get some people in the chat and let them find out what it takes to be you.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you.
So, I mean, I guess if we just start from the beginning, I mean, how did you get into drawing as a child? I mean, what kind of drove you to get to where you are now, like to be the artist, to be the writer and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started like a lot of kids do. I was just drawing all day, instead of going outside, just scribbling away. I was always a big science fiction guy, so I liked Transformers and Star Wars a lot as a kid. I tended to gravitate more toward kind of armored characters and stuff. Mm-hmm. And just like years of drawing like that. Eventually I went to art school. I went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco. Then I was taught by a lot of like Lucasfilm, Pixar professionals. Mm-hmm. I got more and more interested in like filmmaking and stuff and kind of concept art. So that's why my stuff has kind of an atmospheric look to it. I really like the idea of like lighting a scene and making it feel like a real environment. So yeah. And then after that, I was lucky enough to get hired by Jim Lee, which was incredibly lucky. That was like a hero of mine. And that led to working on Transformers and Kill Lock, and that came later. Yeah.
So, I mean, because obviously growing up, like Transformers, Power Rangers, everything like that is from my era. To be able to, I guess, being given that opportunity to work on such a massive thing like Transformers must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was because I was personally a huge fan of it. Like those characters meant so much to me. Like Optimus Prime was this big kind of father figure to me. Mm-hmm. And it was a real honor, it was my first kind of real comics work was that, and did about at least a 10-year run. I still do stuff here and there, but the really bulk of it was kind of this 10-year block. Yeah. And it was a blast. I mean, I loved those characters, and to kind of take the legacy that meant so much to you and carry it to a new generation of fans was awesome.
Because I mean, you've obviously from that you've done like the concept work, with Star Wars, Star Trek. You've done Marvel and stuff like that. Did that kind of open up the doors for you when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, I think like so I was into Marvel and Transformers growing up, and then when I was at Wildstorm with Jim Lee, I started doing comic conventions. So that was like setting up in like Artist Alley, and that led me getting more kind of comic book gigs and learning about that world, because I had kind of gone to school for concept design, because ironically I didn't think making a living as a comic artist was possible. I thought it would be really risky. Turns out freelancing has been very stable. Like I've been freelancing for well over a decade now, and wow. And I really enjoy it. Like I love the lifestyle. Like pre-COVID, I was working from home, and it really agreed with me. I like that notion that you just put on a documentary and draw at home. It's really nice.
Yeah. See, I think a lot of artists that I've spoken to, it didn't really change that much. Like going into lockdown, if you was working on a project, you would have been at home, you would have been in your own mindset, your own bubble, you would have been focusing on that. So what was going on in the outside world was kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, the only really big hit for us was, I mean, aside from worrying about everyone's health and, not being able to go outside, was we lost all the comic conventions. So that was the really big one for the industry. And I mean, who knows now? I mean, there's the only one scheduled for next year that I really believe will probably happen are like end of next year. So we're looking almost a year from now. So, yeah.
So I mean, have you seen a massive change? Because obviously, as you mentioned, going into the conventions and meeting people face to face, have you seen an increase of like online interviews like this, wanting to know more about you? Do you find it more intimate? Do you find you can do more because there's not a queue of about 30 or 40 people waiting to ask you questions?
Yeah, I think that is true. Like there definitely seems to be a more active online presence, a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows. And then also I've noticed that a lot of online commissions and people wanting to buy stuff through email, that stayed at least as steady, if not gone up. And I would have thought with the uncertainty of COVID, people would have been more like, I'm going to hold on to my money. But there's a real hunger for people to want to be able to buy the things that they would have gotten in person at a Comic-Con. So that's been nice all around. It's good for us as the artist, and it's good for the people that get to collect
Mm-hmm.
it too.
I mean, it must be great, like getting the opportunity to meet the community, to answer the questions, to be kind of like online Comic Con. Because I think one of the biggest things that happened this year for DC was obviously DC Fandom. So that was kind of their staple hold of getting people involved in the online community and stuff like that. Do you kind of see this as something that will die down once COVID finally releases its grip on the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I honestly don't know. I think COVID changed so much about our way of life. You know, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was saying that it was like COVID, like advanced civilization 20 years in 1 year.
Yeah.
It made everyone who normally doesn't work from home figure out how to work from home. And now that once we have the vaccine, a lot of companies, I think, will be like, well, you know, we didn't need to pay for that office space for 100 people. You know, they can work in their living room. So we'll see. I mean, I hope that the community, like this kind of stuff, stays active, because this is, you know, you're based in London, I'm in LA, and it's like, you know, once COVID's over, it's not like you and I can meet up in person every week. But something like this is really cool, where it's like we connect that way. So, and
this is what, like, with the community and everyone in the chat, this is kind of where we've all kind of met. Like during lockdown, we've kind of, in the UK especially, we formed our like community of comic book lovers and nerds and stuff. And it's obviously in America, you have the massive Comic Cons. You have like thousands and thousands of people like coming to different Comic Cons in like Baltimore and New York City and stuff like that. In the UK, YouTube has kind of been our weekly Comic Con, where we can kind of just jump on, talk to each other. And as you said, we're not going to be able to meet up every week, and like, I can't hop on a flight and just join you in LA. Do you know what I mean? As much as I'd love to. But it's kind of been, I really hope this doesn't stop as soon as things get back to normal. You know, like that's it, back to normal. You go about your business, you talk on WhatsApp and stuff like that. But have you found yourself doing this more, not because of your job and because of the interview, but just because of the fact that you can't get out?
Yeah, I think for everything. I mean, I think it's really nice to talk to people. Everyone's sort of stuck at home, so any kind of interaction is great, you know. And then also the nice thing too is that, you know, with something like comic book work, is you're sort of working on it in a vacuum, and you put it out to the world, and then you meet people at conventions in person, or people tweet you. But other than that, you don't really meet face to face the people that are reading your stuff. So it's really cool, this kind of thing, to have like an in-person talk about it, you know?
Yeah, and it must just be, I mean, for me, I always love to find out who is and who still is your greatest influence. Like, who was the one that when you were growing up, you were kind of like, I aspire to be that, I aspire to do work like that, I aspire to do writing like that. Who kind of still to this day do you look up to? And
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it shifts too the older you get. Like, I know growing up, I loved like Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane. And then in high school, I got into like Alex Ross, and that's when I started looking at coloring, because I never thought I would color. I thought I would just do black and white work. And then after that, I got way more into filmmaking, so like Ridley Scott. So it's sort of this path where all those guys kind of shaped the stuff that I was interested in. The writing side is new to me, because like The Kill Walk is the first thing I ever wrote professionally. And so that was really rewarding that people liked it, because I had no idea, because I had no clue. Like, I was like my first time ever doing something like that. So I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few influences. Like, I think in terms of writing, like Garth Ennis, I really like a lot. Brian Vaughan, I think those guys are great. Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl, she's like one of my favorite writers too. But yeah, that side of things is definitely newer to me compared to like the art side.
And what do you enjoy doing more? Because obviously with Kill Lock, it was great. Like, it kind of was roles reversed, because obviously the publisher will come to you and say, we've got this concept, this is what we're looking to go with, would you like to be a part of it? But I guess on the other side, it was you doing that. Yeah,
it was definitely like I finished The Kill Lock completely and then presented it to IDW, because it was a kind of passion project I did for like 4 or 5 years around other stuff, you know, chipping away at it. And like, you know, and it was just a blast. It was like my happy project around all the other stuff. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you're like, man, is anyone going to like this? Because you're working on it for years without any, not really. I showed a couple friends that I trusted who have good taste and stuff, and they were really helpful and supportive. But yeah, then I took it to IDW, and then they were really great too, you know? So,
I mean, why was IDW your chosen publisher?
I talked to a couple others. IDW, first of all, they had been great to me on Transformers. Like, I know that
of course,
really well. And but there was still no guarantee they would greenlight this, because like I had friends who also pitched creator-owned stuff that didn't get greenlit. So it really wasn't about how long they've known you. It was really like if they believed in the series. Yeah. I talked to a couple other publishers that were like, which I totally get. They're like, we like the project, but we don't know if people can invest emotionally in robots, which to me, I've always thought this series is way easier to read than it is to pitch, because if you think like a Pixar movie, people invest emotions in cars and robots, monsters, like no problem with that. But I think when you hear the idea, it sounds kind of crazy. But
it's like the old school Johnny Five Alive, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think everyone thought of this robot movie that was never going to take off, and it's like one of the iconic 80s movies of all time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like R2D2 is like
exactly
an emotional character, and like it doesn't even have a face or speak. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
We was talking Power Rangers last night, and in one of the issues, Alpha gets beaten up, and it was kind of like, why are you hitting a robot? Don't hit the robot. There's emotions there.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was listening to a commentary on Terminator 2, and James Cameron was talking about the scene when like the T-1000 is like destroying Arnold in the factory. Yeah. And James Cameron was like, it's in the first movie, the Terminator was really threatening because you see how much punishment he can take and keep going. And now it's sad because you can see how much punishment he can take while he's still alive, that it's like you kind of watch him suffer. And that's like an interesting idea.
Yeah. And you see the emotion, you're kind of like, you're attached to him. You're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, leading on from like attachment and emotion and stuff, I guess there's points in the work that you do that you, I guess with everything, you get emotionally attached to it because it's kind of like your brainchild, you're coming up with ideas and stuff like that. How long would you take? Like, what is your general day when you're working on a project? What's kind of like your drawing routine? How often do you spend on it? Is it like an 8-hour day, or you break it up?
Yeah, it varies a little bit. I mean, generally, I've always been more of a night owl, so I'll start working at like 10 or 11, and then I'll stay up late at night, work. Like during the COVID especially, I was working during the day on stuff, and then at night I would do kind of another shift, like 3 or 4 in the morning, because there was no reason not to. You know? I was being productive, and I was enjoying what I was working on. So, but yeah, I mean, it varies, but yeah, generally I do like a full day. The thing I love about freelancing is if you want to take a break, you can go run errands or whatever in the middle of the day. You don't have to clear everyone, and then you can just work at night. But generally every single day I work pretty much like an 8-hour day.
Now, on that note, I've got a question from Joe Solis. He said, Livio makes a good point. Since Comic-Con shows are non-existent in 2020, how do fans go about getting commissions from Livio or Livio exclusives?
Oh, no, I know Joe, by the way. Hello, Joe. Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a new website that actually this fine gentleman put together. So
I dropped the link at the beginning for your website and also your YouTube and your Instagram as well. So if you are in the chat and you want to find out how fantastic this guy that I'm talking to now, make sure you do check him out.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, LivioRamondeli.com is my website. You can contact me there for commissions, exclusives, and that's for most artists these days. Like social media, hopefully they're good. Artists can be a little flaky sometimes about communication, but I try and always be on top of things with that. Yeah. So, but yeah, generally just social media, reach out. Artists usually have in their bio, like on Instagram or Twitter, if their commissions are open. So, yeah.
I can 100% say that your communication is second to none, mate. So
thank you.
I'll give that to you out there. But I mean, what I'd like to know is, do you like, so say you're given a project by a company and they're like, right, we'd like you to do this, this, and this. Do you work on a whole page or the overview of the concept, or do you kind of focus in on one thing and build it from there?
Yeah, I block out the entire like issue or project first. So generally, especially with something like the Kill Lock, I know like 6 issues. I do a plot of roughly where it's going to happen and layouts for each issue. So I know basically rough sketch of the entire page, and then you go in and fine tune all the panels after that. But I mean, you're always like, you're always wrestling with screen time, even in comics. It's like every comic's like 22 pages. So you're invariably going to have to cut stuff out. And that happens along the way. I mean, even when I was doing like the final art and put the lettering on, there were certain lines that I thought, oh, this will definitely make it into the final comic. And when I saw it all lettered, I was like, you don't need that line. So you can cut it. And yeah, it's always like an ongoing process. But that was something that surprised me, is like, just because you write a script that you think is finished and tight, you get to the final issue and you're like, no, this should be changed. It's obvious. So,
I mean, you must be your biggest critic, because as you've just touched on there, you could do stuff and then you think, oh, it's actually not too good, or it can be better. Is that, do you kind of find yourself doing that less and less these days as you've gone on and you've kind of got used to your own style, you've found your own personality and what you're good at?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, you always want to be objective and hard on yourself in a good way, you know, like really make the best possible work you can. I think there inevitably you need some other eyes on it. You know, people have these blinders that just, you know, you look at something you did 6 months ago and you're like, oh, it's so clear why that's wrong now, you know. But thankfully I have like a couple like really supportive friends I trust that have good instincts on this kind of stuff. So if I have a question, I'll show them. And yeah, that's generally it. I would say like I mean, time too. It's amazing what time can do to show the flaws or what you should have done with your work, you know. But unfortunately, that's not the nature of comics. Like the Kill Luck benefited because I worked on it for so long. I could go back and revise stuff because I knew what the ending was going to be, so I could change stuff along the way in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of being a comic book artist, like in this day and age? Because obviously, years ago, it would have been the old pen and paper, pencil, eraser. You make a mistake, you rub it out. With like the changes in technology now, you've got the iPads, you've got the iPens, you've got the workstations and stuff. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, because back in the day, it's incredible to think about. You would mail a penciled real pages across the country to a letterer. He would ink over that. Then it would get sent to an inker. And I was like, I mean, if any step of that, the pages got lost, I mean, you were really in trouble. It's amazing what we have today. I think the hardest thing today, it might just be the grind of the work, you know, because even something like Transformers, which I loved, you know, over 10 years of working on it, you're kind of, it becomes the like daily cranking out where it's like certain scripts you're just gonna be way more into than others, you know. Sometimes there'll be a story where you're like, I will do my best on this, but I'm just not feeling this one as much. Yeah. And that's the really freeing thing about creator-owned work, where it's like you're literally drawing only what you want to work on. So with the Kill Luck, it was a joy the entire time because there was nobody forcing me to do anything.
Yeah. That must have been so cool to come up with your own concept, your kind of own project that you can own. If you make the mistakes, you can deal with that. There's no one beating down on you saying this is the deadline you got to get. Because I guess there wasn't a deadline for that, was there?
No, there wasn't. Like it was created kind of in a vacuum, and it was just like, which is good and bad. It's good that you have all the time to finish it, and then it's scary because you don't know when or But yeah, it's, I mean, and then also, but also I do think deadlines can be really helpful too, because if you know like this has to get done this week, there's no time to like screw around or especially in COVID, I think we're all dealing with that feeling a little bit of like, if I don't get to it today, what does it matter? I'll get to it tomorrow, and that can be bad over time. Yeah, because it just get you in a mindset as like there's always tomorrow, but then before you know it, as quick as this virus came along, it's going to probably end, and everyone's going to be back like, oh my god, them 8 hours that I thought I had yesterday, I haven't got today. So I mean, I think everyone's dealing it in different ways, but it's fantastic to see because artists in general have become so active on social media. Like it's kind of like it's an online portfolio now, and it's opening up to the world because we as the viewers and the comic book readers and the fans and stuff, we get to see a lot more of you as we would do. I mean, we would only probably get to see like you guys at Comic Cons for what, 5 or 10 minutes if you're signing an autograph, if you're signing a bit of paper. So it's great. Selfishly, it's really great because we get to see more of your stuff. We get to see more of what you're doing, and we kind of understand how intimate it is being a comic book artist and a writer and stuff like that. I mean, what kind of equipment do you use to like what have you found yourself like using more often? Yeah, I use so I still draw everything traditionally, like pencil and paper, for two reasons. One, I like the feel of it, I like what it looks like, but also as a comic artist, there's a real, like with commissions and original art, there's a real market out there for people who want to buy originals. So if you have an original page, like there's a lot of people that are interested in buying it. And then after that, I scan things in and I color in Photoshop. So I use right now I have my best setup ever. I just got this thing during COVID, but I have like a 24-inch digital Cintiq on a mechanized arm. Wow. So it can swivel this huge thing, and it's much better for like your back and working all day long. With that thing is like I can just pull it right here and draw like kind of huge face. And that thing is cool because I used to draw on like a kind of smaller tablet, and you're also hunched over, which is not the best, you know, when you're doing it every day. They might evolve it so you can lay on the sofa and it just comes and sits up on top, and you can just. It's pretty awesome, man. It's so good to show you. It's kind of. out of the way here. But yeah, but that's been really nice. Like the digital technology these days is incredible. Like,
so when you're on a tablet, is it an iPad and a pen, or is it a Samsung? I kind of just want to know more about it, because obviously, like, some of the artists like use Procreate. There's so many programs out there. I mean, for kind of doodlers and like artists like myself who like to draw and stuff, would you say like there's a certain easy to go program to get into?
Yeah, I mean, these days you're better off than ever before. I use Photoshop because that's just what I've used all these years. I like it. But yeah, Procreate, I have lots of friends who can Procreate on an iPad and create beautiful looking work, which is way cheaper. Like when I was getting into it, all the digital tablets were super expensive, and quality is better and cheaper now, you know? So for me, I use a Cintiq from this company called Wacom. That's like the premier kind of digital art company. But these days, I mean, you can Procreate on an iPad, on your phone, everything. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you can literally be sitting on a train and design a website now.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's the way that the whole thing's evolving. But I was speaking to someone and they was like, yeah, but we don't like the change. They're kind of so old school. They just kind of want to do what they want to do. I mean, did you ever think that you would get into that mindset of where I'm not going to stop using a pencil and paper? I mean, it's great because you're still doing that. But do you ever think there will come a point where it's like, I'm going to have to stop doing that? I've got to get this. The workload's becoming too much. It's easier to work digitally and stuff.
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, you know, for me, I do find drawing, like actual line art, quicker for me penciling on paper than it does in Cintiq. You know, like there's some people that are very fast drawing. I'm much better for coloring. It depends. I mean, the ironic thing is because I was trained and I did traditional like oil painting and acrylic painting for a lot of years, and I haven't done that in quite a while. And I thought about now, like knowing what I know from Photoshop, if I went and did like a traditional painting, what that would look like. Like I kind of want to do that at some point. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the good thing about digital is, especially for comics, like the corrections are so much easier. When I was in school, I had a teacher that was like a watercolor artist, and he worked in publishing. And if they wanted to change, it was like time to repaint the entire thing, which is horrible. I mean, but in Photoshop, it's like you can do anything, fix anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on when you was at school and stuff. When like what academic like training and education did you go through? Did you ever think that, because I guess it's the stereotypical question, oh, you're never going to be an artist, it's never going to make you any money, you want to stick to writing or you want to get a proper job and stuff like that. Was there any ever point in your life where people were saying that to you and you was like, no, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I've set out to do?
Yeah, I mean, you always have that that doubt, and even in yourself, you kind of think like, you know, that's one reason I went to school for kind of concept art. I was like, I didn't know if I could make it just drawing freelance comic books. Like I just that seemed like not likely unless you were like a superstar. But luckily, like my dad was very supportive, my mom was very supportive, and a lot of parents aren't, you know. But yeah, and I think if you have like the support of your parents, like it makes you want to work harder. Where it's like, okay, they believe in you. So really don't screw this up. You know, they're letting you pursue what you want to do for a living. It's like, that's why one reason with like the communication we were saying, I'm very hard with deadlines, communication. Like I really take it all very seriously. And I know a lot of artists that don't do that.
Unlike me, who sent you the StreamYard link 10 minutes before we went live. I'm so sorry. I actually thought I sent it to you.
Yeah. But your communication was also great. Yeah.
But I mean, being a comic book artist, are you reading any comics at the moment?
You know, it's one of those things where like once
you've got a huge selection behind you.
I know, yeah. So once I started working in comics, I started reading less comics, which is kind of a shame. But these days, I'll kind of reread a lot of stuff. Like I was rereading Dark Knight Returns the other day. Like the newest comic that I read was The House of X, Powers of X, which I loved that. I thought it was really great. But yeah, it depends. I mean, there's so much content out there to consume that it's like I'm reading a big new Star Wars book that just came out that's about the prequel trilogy. It's really cool, but it's like, yeah, I kind of juggle a bunch of stuff. But yeah, House of X was the last new comic thing I read.
And do you find yourself like reading comics and thinking, oh, I'd love to do a piece of art of that, and then before you know it, you've kind of put that comic down and you've just started on a piece of artwork?
Oh, I mean, it depends. Like there's so much stuff out there. Like I remember when I was doing Kill Lock, I was reading a lot of independent comics, and I was like, sometimes you get really inspired to finish something because you're like, oh man, like look how much fun these creators seem like they're having. And then you're also like, even if you read one you don't like, it kind of gives you confidence because you're like, oh, if that got published, then maybe I'll have a chance. So, yeah.
But I mean, as you've got older and stuff like that, have you? So obviously, if we go back to your like IDW days, like doing Transformers and stuff like that must have been great. And then moving over to Firefly. Firefly was quite a great step in the right direction, I guess.
Yeah, I did. So I did this company called Inside Edition. So I did Firefly and 2 Star Trek books, and they were these kind of travel guides. Like if you were going to go to that universe, what would you see? And those were both really awesome projects because I was a big fan of Star Trek and Firefly. And it was also different than comics, where it was like it was more kind of sci-fi illustration and designing costumes and like sets, that kind of thing. Like that was a really cool experience.
So Firefly, is it Boom Studio? It is Boom. Is it Boom Studios or is it?
I didn't work on the comics for that. I worked on a travel guide Firefly book for Inside Editions. Yeah, Firefly, I didn't do comic stuff for. But did
you ever get the opportunity to do the crossover into comics? Or was that kind of
Firefly? Lately, I've done a couple other properties though. Like I did a Power Rangers cover. I've done Back to the Future, which was cool because it's kind of getting into more sci-fi.
The Transformers Back to the Future one was the one I mentioned. That was amazing. And again, that is 2 iconic moments of the 80s, like the Transformers with the Optimus Prime picking up Marty McFly and stuff like that. That must have been great to sit down and draw.
That was really cool. Like Back to the Future didn't have a giant comic book presence before.
No, not at all.
So it was I didn't ever, and I love that movie. So I was like, I never thought I'd get a chance to professionally draw it and interact with like Universal Studios. But it was cool. I mean, it was really, after doing Transformers for so many years, sometimes you're like trying to find like, oh, what's something new I can do to be excited about. And that was like a great example where it's like, man, Megatron facing down the DeLorean. Like that's a great. Yeah.
That was, I mean, because a lot of comics, like recently over the last year or so, have started to do crossovers. You've got like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers crossing over with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You've got Transformers crossing over with Back to the Future. I think Batman's even delved in and helped out Michelangelo and the rest of the Turtles. A few things. Is there any projects out there that you would like to get involved in that kind of haven't evolved yet, and you've kind of got some ideas on paper and it's kind of like, well, I'm back into the kill lock stage, I'm kind of coming up with a concept here that I would like to push forward?
There's a few, like in terms of properties, like RoboCop, I'm a huge RoboCop fan. Like I would love to do, I've talked to Boom Studios about RoboCop. I was like, if you ever need any art, like, so that would be really cool. Yeah, Blade Runner, I'm a huge fan of. Like that would be.
I can see the poster bit. Is that the Blade Runner poster behind you? Yeah, it is.
But it's cool. I mean, those 2 are like kind of untapped things I would love to do. I've done some Star Wars covers. I just did another one for IDW. Like I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I would love to do more of that. And then just designing more original stuff like Kill Lock. Like I think I really want to move into that world too. It's a lot more kind of creator own stuff.
So I mean, because I think it makes sense to go on to it. I mean, because obviously the fantastic work that you've done on the Transformers, Firefly, Star Trek and stuff like that, being able to be given the opportunity of creating something amazing like the Kill Lock and being able to take that to a publisher and say, this is the work, like this is my brainchild, this is what I've come up with. That must have been a huge sense of achievement for yourself.
Yeah, it was. It was a really great experience. Like I loved working on it, and I thankfully got like a really nice response from people. Like I got a lot of messages from people that had never even read Transformers. They were just judging the Kill Lock on its own merits, and that really meant a lot to me. Where it was like, you know, like I really hoped that people would connect with those characters emotionally. So with that, it was more like when they complimented the story, that made more that meant more to me than the art, because I was like, oh, I'm so glad that this was resonating with people. And then that was encouraging to kind of move forward with other ideas.
I mean, because obviously for people that haven't read Kill Lock yet, 1, where have you been? Have you been living under a rock? 2, we've been in a pandemic, so why haven't you? But I mean, obviously the brief overview of it, there's 3 robots, and they're kind of they've committed this disgusting crime that's irreplaceable, and they've been banished to their home country and their home planet and stuff like that. And I thought that was it's a totally different concept to what we're used to. Like everything, I was speaking to Tom from Not Quite Mint the other day, and everything is based around superheroes. We know the ending. We know that they're superheroes. They've got powers. They're either going to survive or they're going to, in an alternative universe, they're going to come back as something else. in the Kill Lock, obviously there's 6 issues. Is there any? Is it going to carry on? Is it going to go further?
I mean, I would love to. Like, I do have plans to definitely continue that story. Like, hopefully, I'll be able to like share more soon. But I hope with the first series was that like if it was just those 6 issues, that it would have enough of an ending to be complete, you know. But I also like I really want to do more and like have ideas definitely of where the story would head. But yeah, it's like something like hopefully I'll be able to talk more about soon. I'm sorry I can't can't get into it more, but
that's
I would.
fine.
Yeah.
So obviously there's 6 issues there. Did you have more issues planned when you was coming up with the idea, or did you have to kind of you stopped at 6, see how that went, and then think, oh, I'm going to progress with that if it does go any further? I mean, was it bigger than it actually is, or
it actually expanded. Initially, I thought 4 issues because there's 4 main robots and they each have like a flashback. So that made sense to me. Like, oh, you know, each issue will have a flashback. But then as I was doing the series, I was like, the story just kept expanding, and I was like, and I think for better. Like I think a lot of good stuff got added later. Some of my favorite stuff, and so yeah, I knew those 6 would be kind of self-contained, but then the ending, without spoiling anything, does have an idea of where the story's heading, you know, and it should be something exciting like the first 6. So, but yeah, that would be ideally what I'd like.
Having with you having done work on like concept art work for like TV shows and stuff like that, do you think this is something that could cross over to that?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, like concept art is cool. Like that was my job at Wildstorm, was doing, you know, 5 years of design with a great team of artists on like DC Universe Online. The only downside of concept art is that it's not the final product. So you're literally just coming up with ideas, and then it's like that for movies or video games. The final product is the game or the movie, and it has like hundreds of people that work on it. So the sense of ownership is not quite there. Whereas something like the Kill Lock, the story and art are all by me. So if someone really like the series, that's really gratifying. Whereas like concept art is just more of like, it's great and I love looking at concept art, but it's much more of like one step along the way.
Yeah, I mean, because some of the pieces that you've done, you can check them out on your website, but they're very intricate, like very in depth, and it's kind of it must be a bit of a break doing like the Transformers stuff and the Kill Dog stuff, just to go away and just kind of do something away from the comic world.
Yeah, like I think with the Star Wars pieces I do, that's kind of what they are. It's like landscape series that I add to, and that's really fun because it's just a one-off, you know, like image that doesn't have to have a story. Or it always has a bit of a story, but it doesn't have to have a continuing like sequential story. So yeah, like I've been doing more covers lately for Boom Studios, and that's also been great too, to just do a cover and make it as best as you can, and then you don't have to worry about the inside, which is great because it's, you know, being a cover artist has a lot of advantages because you can really make a design really elaborate because you're only going to draw it once, whereas like Transformers as a comic is much more difficult because the characters are so complicated. Like just flatting in the color is really time consuming. I don't know if readers understand how much time actually goes into that part of it, but quite a lot. So yeah, like the idea of a cover or like a Star Wars landscape, like that's very relaxing, like from comics.
I try to tie in the colours of the Transformers in the background. So we've got the blue, we've got the yellow, we've got the red. I try to tie that, and that took long enough, but that was just like basically copy and paste. So I can imagine trying to draw Megatron with the rest of the Autobots and everything like that must be 10 times harder than that. So I take my hat off to you. I took my Christmas hat off 10 minutes ago because I was sweating.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean about matching the colors. I always say Transformers is like Skittles. You guys have Skittles?
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
it's like Skittles all over a page. So you have these colors that don't really go together. So you're like, God, like just making this work. That's why I have to tip my hat to Michael Bay because his live action, the colors look great in those.
Yeah.
And he's dealing with a lot of pretty vibrant colors.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is. I mean, talking about the films and stuff, do you ever watch a film of, like, say, the Transformers, think, oh, I should have included that in a comic? Do you ever have you ever been in that position where the comic's gone to pub and you're like, oh, I missed that, I should have added that bit and it hadn't been noticed? Has there been memorable things like that have happened? You're like, I'm kicking myself now, I really wish I'd spotted that.
There are, for sure. There's always, I mean, it's just the nature of the work. Like you hope that you have editors that are going to catch something. Like especially if you're doing something with Transformers, because with the Killock, you're only matching 6 issues of this little world. But with Transformers, you're matching this giant universe that, you're doing this one issue. This guy's drawing the issue after you. Like, so there are differences and changes all the time that people just like, it's really hard to coordinate everything. Like this guy's hand was red in this issue. Now it's blue in the next issue. So what color do you make it in the one after that?
Yeah.
But yeah, there is stuff. Like I spotted one of my good buddies was reading the Killock trade paperback, and he spotted a mistake. Like a robot missed like a part of his face. And I was like, God, like I missed that completely. So I fixed it. So the next trade printing should have that fixed. But I was like, I didn't even notice that. And I hope to God that's the only mistake in there, but we'll see.
Oh my God, that must just be like, because that's out there now. It's not like you can kind of get it back. That's out there. So that must be like a limited piece. There's a limited piece of a missing robot's face when the Killock out there.
I have newfound not understanding without supporting. When George Lucas redid the Star Wars movies with special edition, I definitely understand that feeling of like, even though the readers thought it was okay or the audience, there's something that really bugs me that I really want to fix after 20 years. And I definitely get that impulse. Like I got mixed feelings on whether it should be done, but that does make sense.
I mean, I think Joe's it's like I'm paying Joe to ask these questions, but I'm not. He said, with Killock being so successful, does Livio have any other ideas or projects brewing in his head that he would like to bring to life?
Oh, thank you, Joe. Yeah, definitely more kind of Killock stuff. I really want to keep that universe going. Like I was really excited that they liked the humor, but they also wanted more of the mythology about the world and what was out there and what the history was. And like, that's really what I'm interested in doing, is kind of expanding it out more like that. I do have another science fiction idea I want to do, but it's too early to like talk about. But I should say I'm doing a project with War Chief Gaming. So Chris Metzen, who was a big Blizzard creative there, he and I have been friends for a long time. And I am doing something with him that we can talk about that'll be coming out next year. But that's been a really cool project too.
Oh wow! So yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about that, that's more than fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't really give into details except that War Chief's a new awesome company that Chris just launched. That's going to do tabletop gaming and then tie-in stuff, and we're doing something for that should be really cool.
Oh, wicked! So we will keep our eye out for that. I mean, with everything that's going on with like your Transformers and like Killock and stuff, do you find yourself, so obviously you've got your certain style, you've got you kind of your niche that you're into, do you find yourself more comfortable drawing like the robots and stuff? Because I think on your website you've got the Transformers, you've got like Thanos, you've got Iron Man and stuff like that. It's very robotic.
I mean, I always lean more toward armored characters. I like Boba Fett, Darth Vader, like Optimus Prime. There's something I feel much more comfortable with those. Like, I just like the grittiness, the texture and stuff. Like, it's much more hard for me to draw like Jean Grey or Cyclops or Spider-Man, even like when it's just about a person in spandex or like that stuff. Just feels way less comfortable to me. But so yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like the Killock was kind of very much designed as like an R-rated kind of Pixar movie. So one of the characters would be kind of simple looking and weird enough, but also kind of familiar. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Joe's just said, spoiler alert, I guess he's assuming to the Master Chief. But I mean, out of everything you've done, like, of all the years you've been around, is there any memorable stories that you can and would like to share?
Yeah, I have. There's quite a few. One that I really like because it meant a lot to me. My dad was here for this one because my dad was supportive of me going to be an artist. I went to a Comic-Con in Dubai, which that alone was crazy because I never thought I'd visit Dubai. And then after the Comic-Con, my dad came over and he was spending a couple of days. He always wanted to visit, so we were just having vacation. So we're on the other side of the world, and I get this random Facebook message from a complete stranger that said, I really wanted to meet you at the Comic-Con. I'm a big fan of your work, but I didn't get a chance. Would you like a private tour of the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world?
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, is this like a scam? And then I noticed we have mutual friends. So I asked one of them and they were like, oh no, that's my friend. It's legitimate. Like she's an architect that lives in the Burj Khalifa. So we got invited. My dad got a private tour. We had a drink at the tallest bar in the world, like 100 some stories up. And that was really a blast because it was like that story was crazy. And it was really cool that my dad got to see like, oh, your little robot drawings can lead to something like a story like that.
Wow.
So that was a really cool experience.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Just to think that your drawing and your art has led to that unforgettable moment that I guess you and your dad would never share again. I mean, there's probably not going to be a chance when you're in Dubai and someone's going to come up and go, come and have a look and have a beer at the top of the tallest building in the world.
Yeah, I doubt it. So, but yeah, that was cool. I mean, that definitely was like just traveling the world in general, because there's so many Comic Cons. Like every major city has one now, and like I've gotten to travel to Japan, to China, to Australia, like London, which I love. That's been a blast because I never thought, like going back to what we were saying at the beginning, like drawing in your room as a kid, I never thought that would be traveling. So
yeah. I mean, is there any memorable stories that you thought, oh my God, I can't actually believe this has happened to me? Like situations you've been in thinking this can't be possible. How has this even happened due to your work?
I mean,
not just in general.
the Dubai one was pretty wild. There was also Japan, just being in Japan. I've gone to Japan several times now, and just having complete strangers walk up and compliment you and be excited to meet you on the other side of the world it's a blast. I never thought that would happen.
It's a crazy place. It is a crazy place. I've been there and it is, it's insane. It is, but it's such an amazing place. And I went to Hong Kong on the flip side of that, and it's so westernized. It's so westernized. It's kind of like, I didn't like it as much.
Oh, interesting.
I preferred Japan. I preferred like that part of the things, but it is great. I mean, it must just be such amazing feeling. Like you could be walking down New York City, or you could be in Japan and someone comes up to you and they've recognized you because they've read your comic. That must be a pretty good feeling.
It's amazing. Like it's I just went to a comic store here in LA, like or actually a store, like a Kinokuniya. I don't have that chain that I love. And it was in Little Tokyo here. And they had the Kill Lock on the shelf. And I was like, oh, that's just really cool to see your stuff like out in the wild. You know, someone can come up to you. But that's cool. Hong Kong is on my list. I've never been to Hong Kong. I really want to go though.
Hong Kong is incredible. And I was lucky enough. I think I went there in 2013. I went with work. And I went there and I only had to work for 2 days, but my boss was like, look, you're never going to get this opportunity again. Book the flight, stay there for 12 days. And I stayed there for 12 days. And it was so weird because computer consoles out there are frowned upon. Like you can't pick up a PlayStation, you can't pick up an Xbox and anything like that. If you do, you have to go into like the black market type of things just to pick up one. Yeah, it's mental, yeah.
Why? Is that because it distracts from work?
I think basically it is because they don't want their society to just sit there gaming all the time. But that when you think about it, from Japan and China, the majority of that concept comes from there, the computer games, the manufacturing side of things. So I guess it's kind of like they don't want to shit on their own doorstep. Do you know what I mean? They kind of like it was really surreal, and I kind of went there to get like a portable PlayStation. I was like, you won't get that here. You'll have to go downtown into the markets because we don't interact with stuff like that. And it was like, wow. But I mean, for you to be over there and people like recognize like that must just be great. But does it become tedious sometimes where you're kind of like walking down the street and go, oh, I'm just having such a bad day. The last thing I want is someone to come up to me and say, I didn't like your comic.
Yeah, the good thing about like working in comics is that if anyone knows you, they generally only know the work, and so you have to put yourself in. It's not like you're a movie star where you can't walk down the street. You know, like I always thought someone like Stephen King had an ideal level of fame where it's like everyone knows the name Stephen King, but how many people really know what he looks like? You know, he can go to a restaurant and be okay, and that's comics are the same thing where it's like you if you go to a Comic-Con, then people will come up to you and talk to you and they recognize you. But if you're just walking down the street, like I think only one time ever, I think once I was checking into a hotel in America and once I was getting my car from a valet, 2 Transformers fans recognized me, but that's the only time it's ever been outside of a con. So that's been nice. Like that's, but
it's still pretty good though. But I mean, out of all the work you've done, do you have one favorite piece?
There's a couple. The first Transformers thing I ever did for IDW was a Best of Optimus Prime cover. So I didn't know if I'd get to do any more. So they were like, we need this is going to be a trade paperback for Best of Optimus Prime. Just draw any shot of Optimus Prime you want. So it was like total freedom. And I was like, oh, I've been waiting my whole life for this, So that was a blast. That piece is really special to me. That's the first published thing I ever had. So I also did a Vader on Hoth piece I did for fun. It's like a big landscape of Vader, like walking through the Battle of Hoth. And I was happy with how that one came out. And then like just the Killuck in general is like those three things are probably my favorite kind of accomplishments.
I mean, do you like, are they framed, or have you still got the, I guess you would have had the original first published Killuck. Yeah. That would have been.
My brother actually gave me a really nice gift for my birthday last month, where he framed I had emailed him like 5 years ago the script of the Killuck. What do you think? And a rough cover image. So he got me a really nice frame, like that email, the rough cover image, then the issue 1 that was printed all sealed up in glass. So that was really special. So I had that framed on the wall because that was like really cool to see. Like oh yeah, I've been working on this for so long, and like yeah, it's been a real meaningful experience.
I mean, there must be, like, everyone kind of not aspires to do something, but there must be some characters out there that you've thought about drawing, haven't got round to drawing, and kind of thought, do you know what I would like to draw? Is there any characters out there, being superheroes, robots, or anything? Is there anything out there that you thought, I haven't even got time to draw that yet? It
depends. I mean, there's quite a few. Like I'm a huge Venom fan. Like I'm very much a fan of that era of Spider-Man and that character. I'm a huge X-Men fan. It's funny too. I don't know if you feel this way. I don't know if you're still reading a lot now, but my concept of where those characters are is still kind of stuck back in when I was reading them. So when I think of the X-Men, I kind of think of the classic Jim Lee designs. And I think Spider-Man is being married to Mary Jane. And now I'm like, I realize how old I am because that's not been that way for so long.
No.
And so now it's like, if I got to do Venom, it's like, which version of Venom would you even do? Because things are so different now. Like,
well, I was gonna say that obviously Venom has taken off recently with like the King in Black and stuff like that. But it's funny that you say about Spider-Man, because I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I was like, so hold on, he's with Gwen now. Where's Mary Jane? And they're like, where have you been? Like, Gwen died years ago. Mary Jane, and I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't get my head around it, but it does.
Yeah, man. I was talking to a guy at work when I was at Wildstorm, and he's older than me. At least I think he was like 10 years older than me. He hated that Spider-Man was married to Mary Jane because in his mind, he's like, Peter Parker should always be dating new people, and his life is falling apart. He should never have any security. And I was like, wow, because to me, I liked that he had this nice companion at home, going out and getting his ass kicked, and he could kind of retreat back home. Like, it's just funny. It's like whatever era you grew up with is like, that's your version of it, So,
but I mean, so obviously Killuck was your first writing piece, wasn't it?
Yeah. First professional. Like I was doing writing kind of for fun, as a kid and stuff. But that was the first big professional one.
Did you enjoy it as much as you thought you would? And have you got plans to do any more writing, or is it just going to be solely art, your covers and?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the kind of rough stuff I've done for an idea for a sequel is I really enjoy it. The writing is kind of effortless because it's like you can just type, the fleet attacks a planet, and you don't have to worry about drawing it yet. That's like a problem for down the line. But the writing, I really enjoy the writing a lot. And then even like working with this great letterer named Tom Long, who letters the Killuck, like being able to direct him, like, hey, can you kind of figure out a font that looks like an old, biblical font, and see what he does with that. I really enjoy that process because that was all new to me, compared to drawing. But I would love to do more writing.
It must just be good though, like just adding these different elements to your portfolio, like learning. I guess you're always learning new things. Yeah,
it's cool too. Like, Killuck really feels like more of a step forward, because it's like, if you Google it now, I'm listed as like the author and not just the artist. And like, that's the first time I've had like that credit. So it's like, that's been really nice.
And what would you say you would like to do more of? Do you want to stick to the art, or do you want to do you ever see yourself making a transition over from art into writing? Do you ever think you could enjoy the writing that much?
Maybe I've thought about that, like maybe write like a sci-fi novel or something, and just see if I enjoy that process or if I could do it. I think I would have trouble writing something for someone else to draw though. I think writing a comic script and having someone else draw it, like maybe, but I don't really think that's where I belong or where my strengths are.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Stick to what you know, I guess.
Well, I have like writer buddies where they'll have like 17 different story ideas at any time, and they're all pretty good. And for me, it's like I'll have one or two, and I really work hard to make those good. But I don't. You always hear those stories about like, you know, some writer getting called into a meeting with a director, and they're like, "Hey, we might do a movie about pirates. You have any idea?" And the guy's like, "As a matter of fact, I do." And it's like, how many? Like, I couldn't
Just
come up with a good idea.
Picking them out of the hat. Just picking them out of the hat. Oh, I've got an idea for this. I've got an idea for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we can all agree that you have a very distinctive drawing style. But I mean, what would some of your key points be when making these illustrations? Like, is it kind of you see? We touched earlier on, like when you draw the comic, you kind of do the panel as to begin with. But when you're doing a character design, do you solely know what that character is going to be, or does it kind of evolve as you're drawing it?
It's a good question. It kind of goes both ways. Like with the Kill Lock, for example, like I knew that it was all going to be about contrast. So you were going to have like this huge ass kicking robot, and then you contrast that with a very spindly kind of engineer. So immediately I knew one of them is giant and kind of armored. The other one's going to be thin and weak, like tiny limbs. So then from there, you got to keep making it more specific, where it's like, okay, now that the sizes are there, what is the face like? You know, what makes the engineer look smart? What makes the warrior look intimidating? And then go from there. But I mean, some people I know do the visual first and then figure out the personality later, which is interesting. But but for me, it kind of comes at the same time.
And is there anything that you're working on at the moment? I know you mentioned that you're working on Boom Studios. Is there anything that you can kind of say that the covers that you're working on at the moment that they're out there?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say yet because it's a variant that I probably can't say. I did just do a Star Wars Adventures cover for IDW that is a variant with Kylo Ren and Vader's helmet, and that's a Devil Dog Comics variant. You can get it there. Oh, wow. I did a Power Rangers recently. Let's see. What else did I? Yeah, and then War Chief, there's a big project coming with that. And then I'm still doing Transformers stuff. Like I'm doing a Transformers cover right now for IDW. Insecticons, one of the Transformers fans out there. But yeah, I think that's all the stuff I can really say at the moment.
Do you ever think you'll stop doing Transformers? Do you ever think there'll be a kind of day where you'll be like, I'm retiring my pencil and my tools. I'm down in tools. And I'm never going to do Transformers again.
It's possible. I mean, I really like the IDW has been really great to me. Hasbro's been great, and then the fans are awesome. You know, like the fans over the years. So I would always like to do something here and there. Even now it's kind of less of my daily life than it was for a long time, which is nice because I do think at some point you do want to hand it off to other people. And you know, I have enough of a body of work behind me and trades that I'm proud of that I'm like, I don't really feel the urge to really do another big Transformers thing. Yeah. But it also depends on the story. You know, if some amazing opportunity comes out, like I kind of thought I was done with it. And then the last big Transformers series I did, Constructicons Rising, was with a writer named Tyler Blazinski, and he had this really emotional, interesting story about the Constructicons, and that it meant a lot to him. And he had that fire about doing it that I had when I first started, and I was like, oh, this is like re-energized me to keep going. Yeah, I think it just depends on the opportunity, really, and then the hours in the day, because I mean, comics are a lot of time-consuming work, you know.
Yeah. I mean, because obviously I just read the comics, and it's kind of just talking to like people like yourself and stuff that you find out that it is very intricate. It's very time consuming. It can be tiring sometimes. And I guess you've probably hit them walls sometimes where you're like, I've been working on this page for 16 hours. I can't do it anymore. How do you kind of re-energize yourself?
It is hard. I mean, there's certain, like when I do any kind of issue, I will generally start with either I'll draw a page I'm really excited about or a page that's easy. Because once you have those things done, you're like, okay, I've begun to like chip away at this thing. And then you kind of keep hammering forward. And then the good thing is, even if it can be a slog sometimes, when you look back and you see all the art you generated in like 2 weeks, you're like, man, this is pretty cool to look at. Like how much raw, pencil mark you put in. But yeah, you have those days for sure where it's like, I mean, that was one big reason I wanted to do Kill Lock was like to break out of doing things that ever felt monotonous to me, where it's like, I'll do something where it's just me calling the shots on an entire project. And yeah, but I mean, it is hard. I mean, that kind of writer's block or artist block, that does happen where there's days where, you feel a little bit less into doing it. But also, I mean, I will say like, I've loved it more than any other like kind of work I had, the freelance working from home thing definitely makes it more comfortable.
It definitely sounds it. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I think with artists, you're in your own bubble anyway. So I guess it must be quite lonely sometimes though, if you're just working on a project and you kind of just solely focus on it. I mean, what other things do you do to get away from that?
I mean, when I'm working on stuff, I'm always listening to, like, I love movie audio
Mhm.
commentaries. I listen to those all the time, podcasts. I have a good network of friends too. So, like, especially during COVID, we'll hop on Zoom
Mhm.
like this and we'll be talking while we're drawing. So you sort of feel like someone else is in the room.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's been nice because even if you're silent for a few minutes because you're drawing, it still feels like you're not totally in a bubble alone.
Mhm.
But it's, I mean, the working from home thing before COVID was always fine with me because you had the trade off of getting to do Comic Cons. So you would you
Mhm.
might work at home for a couple of weeks, but then you're going to fly to some cool city and see your buddies in
Yeah.
person. That's been really
Yeah.
nice. But
What
yeah,
has been your favorite Comic Con?
the one in, let's see. I mean, Emerald City Comic Con in the US, I really like a lot. That's the Seattle one. That one's great because Seattle's like a really good part, like really good city. Everything's really
Yeah.
centrally located. Like you can walk right out and there's the harbor and everything. Um, Auto Assembly actually in Birmingham in the UK is a really great one.
Mhm.
That's kind of a smaller, now it's TF Nation. It was called Auto Assembly, but it's like a smaller Transformers convention that's in one giant hotel. So you go work the convention and you go right to the bar inside the same spot and then back into the con. And that's like what you do for like 3 days. So
Oh wow.
that's a blast because there's a really good kind of family community sense over there. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then all the ones in Japan are amazing, like Tokyo Comic Con, and then the little events we do over there are always great.
Yeah,
So,
because I think my first ever Comic Con I went to was in 2018, and it was the MCM one in London.
oh,
And
nice.
this is kind of where this whole Geeky Guy Comics thing started. So I can totally see like the euphoric feeling of going to a Comic Con and everyone's dressed up, they're buying comics, they're talking to people. It's a great atmosphere, and I really do hope we get back to it because. But then on the flip side, I still enjoy doing this. I
Yeah.
feel this is great, and I think if we can kind of, as a society, get used to doing this and having the Comic Cons as well, and kind of not forget about this, I think it's just great for the whole community, like the comic book community going forward.
I agree. Yeah, I think definitely because it's also I talk to a lot of people that really like these kind of streams because they can't afford to go to a Comic Con or maybe
Mhm.
their area is too remote that it's like this gets them a chance to kind of experience a bit of it with
Yeah,
just at home, which is awesome. Like I would have loved to have this when I was younger. Like
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think definitely. I think now that it's here, I can't imagine streams dying down
hmm,
because I think they're so enjoyable. Like we all enjoy doing them, and
yeah,
you know, so
yeah. And I mean, on that note, it's been great having you on. Have you got any words of wisdom for any young artists out there wanting to jump into comic books, wanting to get their foot in the door and stuff like that? Is there anything that you would say do?
I mean, yeah, I would just say take it seriously. You know, if you want to do comics or you want to do art, it really has to be hard work. You have to communicate. Like you can't get an email and sit on it. You really have to respond back. And then your social media needs to be on point. Like make sure that
Mhm.
your page has all your contact information, that you're updating your social media regularly so people know that you're active. All that stuff's really important. But yeah, those are the big things. And then also these days, like young artists are in a really good position because there are so many Comic Cons around the world that you can get a table in a
Mhm.
city near you for, just set up, even a little con, set
Yeah.
up, and you never know who's going to walk by. You can start making a name for yourself or meet an editor. So yeah, that's the big stuff.
And to finish on, have you got anything coming up on your YouTube channel or social media platforms that people can find out more about you, interact with you more, and everything?
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram is probably where I'm most active. You can send me a message there or
Mhm.
Twitter. On YouTube, my YouTube channel has audio commentaries for the Kill Lock. So if you like the issues, it's my thoughts about making them.
Mhm.
Like, oh, the spoilers. So make sure you read the issues first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the main stuff I do.
And just to remember, if Joe again has just posted a link in the chat for it's the Devil Dog Comics Collections Transformers. So by all means, do check that out. I will definitely be checking that out afterwards because that looks incredible.
Cool.
But I mean, thank you so much for taking the time from sunny LA. Is it sunny there? It must be sunny there.
No, it's actually gonna be gray.
Oh, it's not okay. Well,
Yeah, most days are sunny. We get almost no rain, but today it was
mostly.
overcast. Yeah.
And just to end with, behind you, if
Yep.
you could just turn around now on the split of a dime and pick one of your favorite books, what would it be?
Oh man, a book or a comic?
You decide. You've got 2 seconds to decide.
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns. I think it's got to be. I've been reading the Batman, the White Knight, and the Curse of the White Knight, which is
Yeah.
insane,
Oh, nice.
which is pretty great. But I think everyone at heart is a Batman fan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Are you
Yeah,
looking forward to the new Batman film?
I am. Yeah, yeah. I think that director is amazing, especially. So
I think it's quite fitting that they've got a vampire now playing
I
the Bat.
know. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah.
But Joe, thanks to everyone that's joined in the chat. Joe, thanks for the questions you've put out. I'll send the money via PayPal if you're okay with that. But it's been great having you on, Livio. I will continue to talk to you on Instagram, and we'll be speaking to you along the way. And if I don't speak to you, have a fantastic Christmas, and I hope you and your family stay safe. Continue doing the fantastic work, because I'm loving the covers that you're putting out. I've just started reading Kill Lock again, because it's great, and it kind of ties in with everything that's kind of happening now, with like different comics that are coming out, different ties and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to continue that. I would say to everyone, if you haven't read it yet, it's definitely something that you should have on your pull list, and you should, by the end of 2020, want to have definitely read. So then you can check out Livio's YouTube channel and find out what his thoughts were when he was creating it, how he feels about it now. And it's been fantastic having you on, mate. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to appear on this little old show from London.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.